Welcome to Supersonic's last Super Monday of 2021. This time we're going to be rounding up the year and talking about the biggest hyper-casual trends, insights and tips from 2021, along with what to expect from 2022. It's been a really big year for hyper-casual and for Supersonic, with 26 games published and almost 20 of those in the top 10, including Join Clash and Bridge Race, which are respectively number 1 and number 2 most downloaded hyper-casual games in 2021. With me today is Nadav Ashkenazy, SVP Supersonic, and Danielle Cohen, Director of Publishing, who are here to talk us through their biggest takeaways from 2021 and predictions for 2022. But before we dive in, remember, we are here to answer your questions, so feel free to drop questions into the Q&A field or the chat, and we will make sure to answer them shortly. Let's dive in. Danny, I'm going to talk to you first. Let's talk about runner games. It's something we've been hearing a lot about. I think you mentioned it in an article recently. How do you explain the consistent and, in fact, growing popularity of this subgenre?
I mean, runners are fun, no? Taking under consideration that the average session length is around a few minutes, and you want to dive into something really fast and get out really, really fast. Minimum input versus maximum output. You're running, you know your goal. It happens very fast. Levels are pretty short usually, so runners are the perfect kind of mix for that. I think this is what's working there, and I think runners are still a thing, and we'll keep seeing more and more of them. It's important to always mix it with a good theme, something that's trending out there. It was a few months back, it was the feminine theme. Now it's turning into something else. And yeah, the mix is important, right? You want to bring something new to the table. But the fact that runners are working, it's pretty obvious, and it will keep growing.
Mm-hmm. By the way, if I can add, I think that another thing that helps runners is that they are very, very easy to produce. So we all know that hyper-casual is a numbers business, right? There is a lot of, let's call it the luck element.
A numbers game.
Numbers game, or luck element. At the end of the day, you try to find concepts that will be marketable to millions of people around the world, and it's very, very hard to predict well. So you try and fail, and runners specifically, unlike puzzles or others, once you have a very strong template, they are very, very easy to try multiple different themes or mechanic or concepts on a very, very short period of time, which helps you to find the one that fits well, versus puzzle, which requires huge creativity for each prototype, and the amount of prototype you can test per limited amount of time is much lower, which make it harder to hit one.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that and this is kind of related, another thing that we've seen in 2021 is the increase in kind of level of quality and execution in hyper-casual games, which you would think also requires more investment and more time, which might sort of contradict the need to sort of iterate and prototype quickly. How do you kind of can you give us some more detail on this trend?
Yeah, I think that in general there are two main factors that push the level of execution, quality, product, you call it whatever. I think that the first one is the technology itself, right? Today, producing a game in Unity is much easier, and you can do much more versus a couple of years ago. There is more know-how, there are more skills, there is more experience in the market versus the early days of hyper-casual a couple of years ago. But on top of that, the infrastructure allow better product. I think that the competition kind of require it today. So if we look at a few years back, games that are very simple or very limited in content or even repetitive, take even Helix Jump, which is one of the biggest and strongest hyper-casual ever. It's the same level, same mechanics, same concept, just repeat itself with different skins, etc. Today, it will be very, very hard to succeed with such a game. Today, the level of execution, the amount of content are crucial in order to build the retention, the playtime. This is what users get used to. Mm-hmm. And in order to get to the LTV that allow you to scale the game. So I think that this trend is only going to grow. I think that the industry support it because we are all progressing over time and improving our capabilities, but we need to make sure that we match it to the needed level today.
So does that mean that the simple hyper-casual game is dead?
I wouldn't say dead. I think that simplicity, and we still see it today, sometimes something that is more simple and ugly wins over something that is very, very pretty and polished. So it's not always about making it too complex or too much pretty. Ugly and simple still work for hyper-casual in many, many cases, but it's how strong and how flawless the playing elements are, how smooth everything is, how much content do you have in the game. All of these are crucial, even if it's simple and ugly, which sometimes are working very, very, very well with hyper-casual.
I think also like high fidelity is not only about like better visuals or pretty or ugly, it's also like just better colors. You'll see lighter, better scale of colors. Faster processes are also actually like just a faster working game, right? Like faster refresh options, etc. So all of these are coming from the outside world. I mean, from the cinema with QLED and everything that's going on there, and the TVs that are getting stronger and stronger. Then obviously we'll come to hyper casual, and it's really into the matter of just like more sleek, right? Like everything looks just better. I wouldn't say like simple or more complex, right? We're working with, in hyper casual, work with a lot of shaders, so shaders will get more complex, but it doesn't mean that the actual gameplay will get more complex.
Are there, apart from kind of runners and high quality, which now we've just complicated as an idea, but let's leave that aside. Are there any other big trends you guys can think of from 2021?
I mean, yeah. May I?
Yes.
I see the rise of idle arcade. There were a few chart-breaking games lately, and I believe it will grow more. Just like a lot of other elements coming from the RPG casual world, idle arcade is one of them. I want to point out, maybe it's not really a new trend, it's something that's been going on for a long time, but still staying strong. So these type of games, I'm talking about puzzle games, yeah. So puzzle games are usually, or at least games that has a puzzle element in them, such as like Move People by Supersonic, or Stacky Dash, which is also strong. Usually they have like a higher LTV, higher retention, higher in-game metrics, because I believe players just want to get challenged. Not too challenged, you want to feel good about themselves.
Just the right amount.
Exactly, just the right amount. And once you crack that in your game and you have some challenge, some complexity, these things really work well. So this is something that I would like to point out. And I think we'll see more and more next year as well.
Nadav.
I think that IO is huge subgenre that can get more focus, and I find it a very, very interesting one. Looking at from Supersonic perspective, right? The year before 2020, we had hide and seek. This year we had bridge race. It's two of our most successful games, way beyond 100 million installs each, and great profit numbers. But there are many other games in the market, right? Shortcut Run or Aqua Park before that, or many other examples for IO games that became unicorns. So I think that first of all, it's not that you don't see as many IO games as you see runners, of course. They are also more complex to develop. But once you nail it, once you find an IO game that works, it can become massive hit. This is our experience, and you can see other examples in the industry as well. And on top of that, I think that first of all, everything related to the artificial PvP experience, here as well, just like we discussed for the level of quality, there is a lot to improve there. And I think that next year the PvP experience will be better on IO than this year, and this year is better than the year before. And this is a room that we're going to see improvement for sure. I think that the social gaming platforms, right, Snap, TikTok, Facebook, IO games work very, very well there. So if this will keep growing like it looks like it's growing, it also will give more stage for the IO experience. And in general, I think it's a super interesting subgenre to look at and to explore. And if you are able to find something that works, you have a very good chance to build something that is a unicorn game that makes millions of dollars in profit.
You've done it naturally. I barely even had to ask you. But let's move to 2022. Danny, maybe we'll start with you. What's your top prediction? Or caveat, we obviously can't predict the future. But what do you think we can expect from 2022?
Well, I can predict the future. Joking. No, so I can't predict the future, actually. I still believe, like we said, the idle arcade will be strong, puzzles will still be strong, specifically in the first quarters. I would say that I continue to see the continued growth of social networks such as TikTok. So as you can see, whoever used TikTok, who doesn't use TikTok, but you don't? Let's talk about it later. But yeah, you see more views, more likes. It's something that it's becoming, I mean, the number one first growing social network, and you can see it coming to gaming. You've seen it last year. It's gonna grow more, so you'll see a trend, and then the next day or next week, you'll see a game themed with some sort of challenge from TikTok or a trend, or even gamification of one of the trends that's happening on TikTok is happening really, really rapidly and continue to happen.
Nadav.
Every year or every once in a while we see a new subgenre that's taking over, right? 2 or 3 years back it was the simulation, ASMR feeling. Lion were the first to scale it. This year for sure it was runners that became the most popular thing. So every year there is something new. One important thing to notice is that usually the strong subgenre of the year before continue to be strong the year after, right? So ASMR and simulation boomed 2 or 3 years ago, they're huge this year as well. So in general, first of all, I think that very, very likely that we'll see the strong subgenre of this year remain strong next year, right? Runners, simulation, again, the others, puzzles, IO, a bit lower volume, but still for sure. And every year there is a new star. And the big question, it's always good to bet on the old winners because they probably will keep being a strong pusher of the market next year. But the biggest question is what will be the new winner of next year. Idle arcade is growing a lot in the last 2-3 months, so it definitely has the chance to become a huge subgenre. Definitely as hyper casual is a very network-based market, meaning that if you have a couple of games in the top charts, then they feed each other with growth and marketing, etc. So it has a chance to go there. It's still early to say. And I think it's very, very likely that we'll see other subgenres that working very, very well outside of the hyper-casual world, like Idle did, and simplified versions that coming into hyper-casual and conquering the market. It's a big question about shooters and first-person action that didn't work amazingly. We had some good launches this year, but maybe with a better execution, it can happen next year.
Mm-hmm. Last question before we move to questions from our audience. What do you think, and try to limit yourself to just one, what do you think is the top tip for success for developers in 2022?
Do we have an hour?
No,
one
you
tip.
have 30 seconds.
Yeah.
No, you can have a minute.
So I'm going to be cheesy, and I know I'm saying that a lot, but I know it's a hard kind of idea to grasp. But don't fall in love with your game. It happens to everyone. I know you have an amazing game and it just doesn't have the right marketability. If it doesn't have the right marketability, it's not Facebook, it's not TikTok, it's the game. And you should just keep on moving and be agile. Set yourself clear goals for your iteration. I want to get to 40 days day one, 40% day one, or 30% day one in the first iteration, this and that playtime. If you can't reach it, 1 or 2 iterations, kill it and move to the next game. But I think this is the most important point when approaching development of a hyper-casual game.
Guys, just let it go.
Exactly.
Nadav.
It's related to what Danny said, but I'll put the focus on efficiency because at the end of the day, as you said, there is a big luck factor in hyper-casual. No matter how experienced are you and how many games you tested, it's very, very, very hard to predict what will work very, very well, both from marketability and from stickiness perspective, on millions of Americans or Japanese or European people. It's very, very hard to predict it, no matter how talented and experienced you are. This is why trying as many times as possible and trust the data is the key to succeed. Sometimes we see the strongest developers out there taking a lot of time until they find the hit, or a very newcomers into the market succeeding in their first try. and get lucky. And I think that if you build an efficient operation and you allow yourself to work in a very strong methodology, to give up, like Danny said, in the right time, to move to the next one, to minimize the effort invested and the time invested in building the prototype, you are more likely to get faster into your hit or to kind of eliminate the luck factor, which you want to eliminate if you believe in yourself.
So believe in yourself and trust the process.
Yeah, and I think one more thing I would like to add.
This is very sneaky, I didn't see it, but yes.
One small thing is like, actually like more than 50% of our published games are developed by an indie developer or a single developer, right? Not huge teams of 20, 30. I'm not saying it's not a good thing. It's always good to have a bigger team, but I think hyper casual is the place that you can allow yourself to work independently, and you shouldn't be worried about not having like enough designers or artists, etc. It's something that can work also as a single developer. And I mean, us as Supersonic, as a publisher, and I know probably other publishers out there, gives you a really, really good kind of 360 of whatever you need. If you need help with ideation and development and feedback and all of that, and you should use these tools. So, yeah.
Okay, we're going to open it up to questions that we've been getting from you guys. So first up, George Williams asked, I'm going to read this out because from start to finish. Hey all, do you think players are demanding a higher level of polish now from prototypes, or is the core mechanic still king to nailing a great CPI? I'm going to write an article like that. I love that title. Go.
There is a difference between CPI and stickiness. So let's take them one by one. Mm-hmm. I think that for the CPI, it's all about the core mechanic, right? It's not about the amount of content. It's not about the diversity. It's not about even how smooth the game feels, because it doesn't feel. You just look at it. So CPI is all about the core mechanic and the theme, right? If you have a understandable, interesting, appealing core mechanic with the right team that generates some emotions with you, you're going to nail the CPI. So this is from one end. I think that once a user installs the game, yes, the level of polishments that needed today, the amount of content that needed today in order to build a strong retention, a strong playtime, and following that a strong APAPU, which is what Supersonic measures as an engagement with the game, today it's in a higher level than before, and it's harder to get to this 80 cents LTV or dollar LTV today, and you need to work very, very hard. But this is only in a later phase after the CPI proved itself, mm-hmm. and you are working on a much lower risk versus the first test, which is very, very likely to fail.
Totally, and also depends on the genre, right? Like it has to support, like the visual has to support the genre of the game. For example, if it's a simulation, ASMR simulation game, then the level of finish, the level of fidelity needs to be really, really high there, right? As opposed to puzzles and runners where it's not like the part of the main core of the visual side of the game, right? Mm-hmm. So it also depends on what kind of game you're going for.
Nice.
But yeah.
Not 100% sure how to pronounce this name. Kana Koskan asks, from 1 to 10, what do you think about narrative in runners? Maybe you want to take this, Danny. And what is your advice to implement a narrative in runner games?
So I think it connects to what I started from. You should have a clear goal in runners, right? That's what's fun about runners, that you know where you're running, why are you running. So narrative is, in my eyes, a must. It has to have a good story behind it. You're connecting the challenges throughout the platform to your goal. So for example, if you want to get rich, right? A lot of money related games. You want to get richer, you want to collect more money, you want to have a way to spend it on the game. So you have to have some sort of narrative, some sort of idea and a goal when you create a runner. I think it's a must. So 100% yes.
Nadav, anything to add?
I would say that, again, as we all understand that most of the runners leave aside the narrative or the elements. The mechanic is the same, right? There is no huge difference between them. And I think that it's not specifically the narrative as it is the feelings that the type of runner that you picked are generating, right? It can be narrative-less, like for instance Countmaster, which is one of the biggest hyper-casual today runners of 2021, that just generating this feeling of growth and getting smaller and growth and getting smaller, it generates the right feeling for the user. In other cases, it can be the right narrative that generate this feeling. But what important in order to nail the CPI and later the engagement, the retention, the playtime, is to generate the right feelings throughout the runners, because the mechanic is not that important or is not that different between runners. It's about what the feeling that you're generating, the emotions that you're generating for the users, either by implementing a narrative that is very, very interesting and exciting or maybe humoristic, or by using different emotions of getting bigger and stronger and fighting and failing and surviving. So it can be whatever you picked, but always start what are the emotions that I want to generate or to build for the users, and then what is the right narrative or even second mechanic that I need in my game in order to generate these emotions.
Anonymous asks that we please mention methods that developers, this is a great question, developers can use to spot and predict trends. Does Supersonic have any specific methods other than testing games?
So yeah, this is a question actually we get asked a lot. So being a, I call it creative sponge, right? Getting things, sometimes it sounds like, I mean, everything on the way can be a game idea, and everything on the way is trendy. If you see it on TV, if it's on TikTok, like I said before, if it's something that people are wearing now and is new and trendy, everything can be a game. So be a sponge, attract ideas, be open to new ideas. So I would say like I said, social network like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. I mean, this is a really good place for ideas. Besides that, top chart games. What works in games that are now really, really successful, right? And what can I bring new to the table? This is a question that if I would ask myself as a developer, right? Why this game is working? What is the hook in this game? How can I take this hook and make it better, right? This is a really important point. Like, how can I make this, whatever is happening in this game is really, really fun. How can I make this better? Exactly, how can I improve it? I think this is like the two biggest ones that I would go for.
Nadav.
We actually have 2 full webinars, I think 45 minutes, exactly on this point, including one that I did a couple of months ago on the methodology. Yeah, so we have a lot of content about it, but just to complete and to add to what Danny said, the 2 data sources are exactly what Danny said. Either top charts of what's working today and social TV to get inspired on what social trends are going on today before they became a game. But once you're being inspired by these 2, there are 5 different methodologies of building the game, which we are speaking in the previous webinar, either to take an existing hit and add a new narrative with a twist, or merge 2 different games, or come with innovative mechanics. There are pros and cons, and we analyze it quite deeply in our webinar, so I really recommend to go back a couple of weeks ago. It's still very, very actual and very, very relevant on different methodologies to come up with a new concept. I truly think that if you are following a methodology, you are more likely to succeed than if you are just coming with a concept based on nothing, and then your ratio of success still existed, but it's much, much harder to gather. So it's important topic that requires a lot of attention, and we have a lot of data around it.
Coin Games asks, hi, what kind of help do you offer indie game developers who want to have their games published by Supersonic? Danny, do you want to take this?
Yeah, I mean, we like to be flexible and to kind of tailor-made ourselves into the needs of a strong developer. So depending on your weak spot, right? If your weak spot is thinking about new game ideas, we'll be there to help you. If your weak spot is making creatives, we're here to help you. So it can be anything, basically. Yeah.
Anything you need, guys.
Exactly. We're here for you.
Anything to add?
I think, again, I always divide the partnership between a developer and a publisher in 2 stages. Let's call it the prototyping stage and the published stage. We're probably not going to discuss the published stage because it's a full world by itself, but I think that what Supersonic offers in this stage is very, very different than the other players in the industry in terms of vision, technology, platforms, etc. Again, we have a lot of content about this as well. So just go and read and listen.
This is why I'm interviewing Nadav, just so he can push all of our great content.
No, I'm not saying it from a sales perspective. But for the prototyping phase, like Danny said, unlike many other players, we don't have one frame that we are following. When building Supersonic, we decided it will be a flexible company that knows how to be very, very different with different partners according to what they need. But in general, here as well, we are here to help you with the concept building, and most importantly, and this is the most important part, after the first test, if the CPI shows potential, this is where the money time is, and this is where we get in very, very strong with our game designers, with our motion designers, with our publishing managers, with everyone, because finding a marketable concept is it's probably the hardest stage, but even after you nailed it, it's not assuring that you'll get to publish and make a lot of money out of your game. Here, now you need to take this marketable concept and make it a full game, and this is where Supersonic can help a lot on taking a concept that works and building a full game, both from consultant perspective or hands-on to support the art, the building the game design, or whatever needed, analytics, etc.
Next question, also from Anonymous. Are 2D puzzle or skill games dead? For example, Blocks, Color Switch, Rise Up.
I wouldn't say it's dead, right? Because
on life support.
you still see, let's say, on a medium volume, some games like this, but definitely you don't see many successful launches there. And here I would say, and it's related to the two questions before when we discussed the concept process, it's very, very hard to find a concept that is marketable and then build retention and playtime. Use or put your focus wherever you are more likely to succeed. Picking an area that is relatively rare and not very, very common is even harder to make it happen. So I wouldn't go for a 2D puzzle that you don't see almost none of these on the top charts anymore. It doesn't mean that it's dead, but it's just much smaller out of the total pie, and it's much, much harder to find something that will build both the CPI and the retention playtime for this type of game. So I wouldn't start there because again, we want to be efficient. We want to increase our probability to publish. Either way, it's too hard. So let's do whatever is possible to improve the probability and not vice versa.
Danny,
I just wanted to upgrade and add to what Nadav said. Like, I totally agree, and I think it's the question of is the 2D now supporting my game idea? It's like, is it working well with it? Is that the right match? Not sure. In 80% of the cases, probably there are better. It will work better in 3D. So this is the question that I would ask.
Last question, and it's a big one. What advice or thoughts do you have on the future of game design?
I would answer in a big answer. I would give a big answer to a big question. I would say data. So you need to know your, I don't want to say, but you need to know your data. So you need to know what you're looking for. If it's level drop, are you looking at the right level drop? Are you taking the ads into consideration or not? Session length, go deep as you can. And this is the way you'll get to know your users the best. And then obviously iterate the game into something better with better metrics as well. So everything in game design is related to data and looking at the data right in order to make the right decisions, right? And this is the most important thing in game design at the end of the day. Yeah.
She's done. Nadav.
I would add to that in general, I think that there are three elements to the game design layer. One, as Danny said, is data. I would add to that we need to balance between data and speed, right? And this is always the question, right? You can make only 100% of your decision based on data, it means that you will move much slower, right? Because you need to A/B test everything, and we know that speed in hyper-casual is as important as perfecting your concept. So I think that data is super crucial, but for every decision you need to take, you need to say, okay, this one is going to be based on data, or this one is going to be based on something else, because you cannot make all of your decisions because you need to keep the speed. So you need to balance between data to two other things. One is wherever you decide not to follow the data and not to A/B and not to do the full thing, based on analyzing the market very well, right? So knowing and playing every top chart hyper-casual game, understand the mechanic, deconstruct the games, will save you time, because once you will be in the place where you need to iterate and build the retention and play time, and you will be on this dilemma, wow, can I A/B test? Oh, I don't have time because I'm already working on this game for 2-3 months, and it's only a matter of time until the trend will pass, or a clone will come, or someone will think about it before me. Then you'll say, okay, I have 4 strong other games that I know that perform very well, and I can adopt some of the elements there and save some time by A/B test. And the third element, right, it's data, it's adapting whatever is working very well in others. And the third is intuition. This is something that's very soft but cannot be replaced, because every game is a new creature. And you need to understand what complements your own game. You cannot just adapt something from other games that won't be a good fit. So you need to data and A/B test as much as possible under the time limitation that you have. Use best practices of other strong games that are there, and use your intuition as a game designer, as a producer, to pick the right elements to adapt, to understand what will complement with your specific game, specific mechanic, specific narrative. And this is talent. There is nothing else. And this is also something that we provide with our game designers in order to help you to make the right bets and to save time wherever it's possible, and to address and go in the right directions. But you need to combine all of these in order to be a very strong game designer in 2022 and get as many hyper-casuals to the top of the charts and make money out of it.
Amen.
Great success. This concludes our last Super Monday of the year. Nadav, Dani, thank you both very much
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you,
for
Melissa.
sharing these tips and predictions. I'm going to be here all week. No, I won't. The knowledge you've shared today is hopefully going to be another tool in game developers' arsenals when they're working on their next hyper-casual concept and setting it up for success. And as Nadav said, there's plenty more great content designed to help you guys do that on the Supersonic website. So please do go and check that out. And we will see everyone at the first Super Monday of 2022. In the meantime, Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Whoever celebrates.
Happy holidays.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.